And playing in all these overseas leagues, how did you overcome things like language barriers and different cultures?
Well, you soon learn when someone's calling you an idiot in a different language. You soon pick it up.
You do, don't you? Yeah.
But it was a scenario where it was very difficult at first, but once you started to learn the language and try to understand it and try to speak it, people took you under their arms and thought, well, at least he's trying to get involved in that culture, which is very important, and they sort of embrace you a lot more and help you as well. So, excuse me, it was a fantastic adventure, you know, in Germany and in Holland with the different languages, and some great friends and great people that we still have in touch with today.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, some of the overseas clubs that you played for were Glasgow Rangers, Eintracht Frankfurt, Feyenoord, Chelsea, Newcastle United, Swindon Town, Millwall, Selangor in Malaysia, Altay Izmir in Turkey. Now, at times, did you really have to pinch yourself because you were over there and playing with these high-profile clubs and many times playing against world-class players?
Not really, because I always sort of believed in myself, and the first time I went over on a trial I wasn't accepted, and that was due to a little bit of politics back here in Australia. And when I moved from Adelaide to Sydney, I actually stated in my contract that I could buy myself out, so I couldn't be held to ransom by a club. So I paid $30,000 of my own money, and I backed myself to go back and play. And if Rangers wouldn't have accepted me, I would have tried another club, and I wouldn't have tried another club. But initially it all started my father writing a letter to Glasgow Rangers saying that he wanted a trial, and they said, look, if he comes over here, we'll look after him, which they did. And I wasn't successful then. So and part of that reason was because they asked a transfer fee, and they asked Adelaide City, and they said 100,000. And back in those days,
that was
they said
enormous,
to me, son, we can buy a good player here for that, so we'll see you later. But one of the things that I did say was that, listen, if I come back and I don't cost you anything, would you accept me again? I can train for 1 month or 2 months. He said, if you come back and it won't cost us anything, we'll have a look at you again. So I had that in the back of my mind, and when I came back I moved to Sydney, and back then it was the highest transfer fee record in Australian history at $35,000 from Adelaide to Sydney, and I paid $30,000 to be free again, to go back over and have another trial, and I was successful that time. So
not only a good player but a smart businessman.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I think I believed in myself, and that's really what one of the qualities I had, and you know, it paid off in the end.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Full On Football, with tonight our special interview with Dave Mitchell, and he's definitely a champion of Australian football. We're going to rejoin David now, and we're going to speak to him about his coaching, and also ask him whether he's got some words of advice for young kids out there. So let's go back to David. Look, you really did stay extremely loyal to the green and gold, because you basically always made yourself available for Australia, and you chose to play with clubs that would only release you to play for Australia. So what did playing for your country mean to you?
Well, it was everything. I mean, I had the holy grail of wanting to play for Australia. When I was growing up, I remember Peter Wilson playing for the Socceroos in the '74 World Cup, and admiring the Socceroos then, and wanted to be a Socceroo. So it was very special to me once I've achieved that, but it was difficult at times to sort things out with clubs that, you know, you could come back and play for Australia, because in those days they didn't have the international FIFA dates. They weren't in place, so it was a long way for clubs to let you go and play, and I did get in trouble for a few, and I lost my job at Feyenoord, having a big row with one of the managers, because I went to come back and play for Australia in the Olympics, and yeah, so I ended up having to leave Feyenoord, which was sad, because I loved it in Holland and I was doing very well there.
Now, you went on, when you finished playing, you went on to coaching, and you predominantly stayed in New South Wales, coaching the former clubs that you played with, which was Sydney Olympic and Sydney United, and also Parramatta Power. Now, great players don't always make good coaches, but you seem to hold your own in this area as well, because in 1999 you found success and you won Coach of the Year by taking Sydney United to the championships. What do you think was the secret to your success in coaching?
Well, I think the secret to success was don't think because you're a good player you will necessarily be a good coach, because it's a whole different aspect, and You know, my aspect from the coaching point of view is that I want the players to believe in what I'm telling them, and they understand what I'm telling them. And it's no good saying to players at half time, I told you so and I wanted you to do this. You have to really give them a map and show them how you want to play. And if they're not doing that, then you readdress that at half time and fortitude what you're trying to tell them about how you want to play. And at the end of the day, if they don't, then well, they won't be playing. So it's more of an educational thing. You have to teach them how you want to play and the philosophy you want to play. And it's really getting the confidence up and letting the player know that you believe in them as well. And it's a two-way thing. So confidence breeds confidence, and I always want my players to work for each other and be a team and not a player of individuals. And particularly that Sydney United team, we had a great team spirit, and they all played for each other, and we played some really good football as well.
That's fantastic. Now, you're currently with Perth Glory and you're assistant to Ron Smith. Now, you're telling me that he's been a long time friend. What's it like playing with someone like that? Because he's got an abundance of knowledge of how football ticks, what makes it tick, and he's able to have a great knowledge of all things technical in football as well. So what's it like being his assistant?
It's great. A few people have mentioned it, how can you be assistant after being head coach yourself? But I'm very good friends with Ron, and he's undoubtedly one of the best coaches in Australia, and certainly the best youth development coaches. When you talk to all the Australian players of the past World Cups, they all admire Ron for what he does. And there's no culture barrier with Ron. He doesn't care what you are and what background you come from. As long as you play football, he wants you to learn and be educated how to play, how to look after your body, and it's a whole package, you know. And with my Ron and myself as being a joint venture as a team, it's a sort of scenario where I've been at the elite level and I've been head coach before, where Ron's had a great background in educational purposes of teaching the players and is a great philosopher of the game, as you mentioned, Natalie. It's a great combination, and we bounce a lot of good ideas off each other, and you know, he respects what I say and he'll take it on board. But ultimately, he makes the decision, and I would love nothing more than for next season for us to be in the top two and to take out the championship, not for my own personal glory, but for Ron Smith, because I think he's been one of the most underrated guys in Australian football, and it'd be great for him. Yeah,
I agree with you on that one. Now, you've played with and been coached by some absolute legends of the game. Who's left the biggest impression on you?
Biggest impression, well, I mean, I've had a lot of coaches, like you said, and I've actually taken bits and pieces from every coach about what not to do or what to do. Probably two, I would say, would be Glenn Hoddle and Mick McCarthy. With Glenn, he was very much into the psyche of players and getting into the head and finding out what made them tick. And I tend to do that myself a little bit and try and find out what they like, what they don't like, whether it be in training, game-wise. Once you can understand the person and find out what makes them tick, I think you can package a training program and a philosophy of how you want to play into the way you've got all your players playing. And I think that's a very important aspect that coaches don't get enough credit for, as being the psychology part of football. I think it's very important. It's okay having fit players and good players, but you have to, when things aren't going right, try and find out and get into the psyche of the players and work that aspect as well.
Well, yeah, they say it's a mind, body and soul, and that's basically what it's about, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Dave, there's a lot of young players out there who really want to achieve the highest that they can in their football career. What's the best piece of advice that you can give those young kids that are watching out there today?
Best piece of advice is that believe in yourself. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the best player in your age group. You could be an under-12s and don't make the state team. You can be in a zone representative side. There are going to be better players. But when I was younger, there was better players than me. But I had the capacity where I wanted to learn. Learn from your coaches. Do what the coach wants. Learn from good players. Watch videos and CD-ROMs of your idols, of good players. Pick up why they're so good. What do they do? Pick up habits. Why they're successful, and learn that way. And then also, from a training perspective, you have to have a good touch, which is very important. And knock the ball against the wall and continually with your left and right foot, and work on your touch and receiving the ball and your passing, all from a wall. So they're the basic fundamentals. and have a great attitude towards training and playing.
Now, a lot of coaches and players recommend the indoor, the futsal type of football. Do you think that's a good thing for kids to get into, perhaps before they try outdoor, like 11-a-side, for the touch?
Well, it can be. I think one of the biggest problems is, and having played in Holland and having the development they have in Holland, is very much based on is let the players express themselves with the ball. Very much like you say, Natalie, with indoors. I think indoors is great, but it's limited because you don't play in a small pitch in a game. You have to get your head up and look long passes, and players make runs off you. You have to be able to get your head up and pass those balls. But from the point of view of developing, let young kids play. Don't overcoach them. Let them have fun. Let them learn themselves by beating individuals, and that way they'll be encouraged. They'll like the game rather than be shouted at. And I think far too many young coaches or coaches of young teams, should I say, actually dictate to the players about kicking the ball long and winning trophies. It's not about winning at a young age. It's about developing, enjoying the game, and having fun.